This session will highlight a use case of how organizations can leverage data, both first-party and third-party data, and artificial intelligence to improve the efficiency of their marketing campaigns geared towards the acquisition of new customers to their organization. The reason we are highlighting this particular use case is because many organizations across industries, including financial services, where we have done a lot of work, have been experiencing difficulties in acquiring new, valuable customers to their organizations. We have been hearing statements like, I need to spend significantly more dollars just to stay flat on acquisition. My marketing dollars are just not going far enough and are not getting the quantity and quality of new customers to show the ROI on our acquisition campaign. So some of the reasons for this, for why this is actually happening, tie back to what we have been talking about in the previous sessions. Customers are expecting personalization. So the mass marketing campaigns using only the traditional channels are not resonating with current consumers. They are looking for relevant and more personalized offers delivered to them with the right message, through the right channels, and at the right time. In order to address the challenge of maximizing the return on marketing spend on acquisition of new customers, organizations are evolving their acquisition models and moving towards focus on the value of the newly acquired customers and not just on the quantity of customers, and are really moving towards a more hyper-personalized, always-on approach to acquisition and away from mass marketing and periodic campaigns. Further, the organizations are making changes to the way they actually plan, moving towards using the same fact-based or integrated planning and away from different departments making decisions around their acquisition strategies and tactics just based on the data that they have. So evolving the acquisition models, the way that we have just been talking about, cannot be done without using granular data and advanced analytics or AI to precisely identify and profile in detail the best acquisition opportunities. Here in Canada, we leverage our acquisition AI offering to bring Deloitte's proprietary data set together with our client non-PII customer data and leverage descriptive analysis as well as our proprietary machine learning model to make predictions of where are the best opportunities for a given organization to acquire new customers for specific products at a very granular geographical and persona level. Once we identify what are the best opportunities based on the machine learning model, we then utilize relevant data to help prioritize the acquisition opportunities based on various selected criteria, be it risk, be it value, or other organizational considerations and priorities. We talked previously about the fact that there is a need to focus on the value of new customers, however value is defined, and not just on the number of customers. So once we know the prioritized list of the areas and personas the acquisition marketing campaign is going to target, we go once again back to the data to generate rich profiles of these targets to inform the personalization of campaigns. We profile these acquisition opportunities using the rich data we have to drive increased personalization and help make decisions around the mix of channels to use in a particular campaign, which right offer to deliver to those personas, what are some of the right messages to involve in the campaign, as well as how can the creative support the messages we are delivering based on the profile of the population we are going after. That is all enabled by using very rich data and AI to inform the personalization of marketing campaigns. Next slide, please. As you can imagine, the richness of the data that is brought into each use case, as well as the level of granularity of the data, drives the predictive and explanatory power of our AI models, as well as the degree of personalization that we can do of the marketing campaigns. The type of data that we leverage in our predictive models falls into a number of different categories. Key basic demographic data that usually comes in every country from the census and then modeled to the current year and to the relevant geographical unit. When we do work in financial services, where acquisition AI, as I mentioned before, started and was leveraged significantly, we add a lot of the detailed financial data, such as specific product holdings and balances, relationships with primary and secondary financial institutions, as well as more behavioral and attitudinal data around financial decisions, sources of information used to inform those financial decisions, influence and advice around financial behaviors, as well as digital savviness. A very interesting and important data set is around life events, which of course is one of the key triggers in people's lives to make decisions and acquire new products and services. So past and predicted future life events is also a key data set that goes into our predictive models. A very interesting data set that we utilize as part of our AI model is mobile data. The flow of foot traffic at relevant points of interest, for example, branches of a given financial institution and its competitors, give us very interesting signals around the network competitiveness that we also integrate into our models. Last, very interesting data set that I'm going to touch on is ethnographic segmentation. Once we know where the target areas are, and as part of the profiling, we look at this data set. It helps us understand the intrinsic values and beliefs of the populations we're going after, and allows us to increase the degree of personalization of the messages and creative. Each ethnographic segment has a list of positive decision motivators associated with it. So it helps us understand which emotions we need to elicit through our messages and through our creative for each segment to increase the chances of success. A few more points on this slide is that the key to all of this is to continue to look for data at a very granular level that is relevant to each use case. In Canada, our proprietary data set is based on a 6-digit postal code level, which an average has an average of about 50 people, which is very, very small. I will be very much amiss not to mention that the opportunity to acquire new customers is not unique to Canada. So we have also been doing very similar work in Australia. We have launched the offering there and built an Australia very rich data set, also at a very granular level, and brought our predictive models into the country, into Australia, and adapted them to actually take advantage of and be built on top of the new Australian data set, and to make sure that we're actually incorporating the nuances of the population. Next slide, please. So up until now, we actually talked about the first step around identification of best acquisition opportunities. So leveraging rich data and AI to identify, profile, and deeply understand our targets to enable personalization. But the opportunities on paper do not really translate to business results until you are actioning upon them. And this is why activation is extremely important. One of the key points around activation is to actually match the level of execution with the level of the insight that the machine learning model produces in order to make sure that we are spending our marketing dollars very effectively. What I mean by that is that if we do the work and provide insights at a 6-digit postal code level, for example, and as I mentioned, again, it is roughly equivalent to an average of 50 people in Canada. But if you can only create digital audiences in a larger geographical areas, for example, in Canada, the next level of geography is an FSA, which encompasses about 10,000 people, then you're going to be targeting areas that you have prioritized for your campaign, and also going to be targeting the areas that you have that you have not prioritized for the campaign because they don't present as much of an opportunity, but you cannot tell them apart because they are adjacent to the prioritized areas. Within our offering, we have a capability that allows us to create digital audiences, so mobile device IDs at the level of the 6-digit postal code. So the marketing acquisition campaigns will only target the small geographical areas that have been prioritized in order to make sure that the marketing dollars are spent effectively. Our insights and our execution capabilities are matched when it comes off the level of geography. The sales force productivity bucket is a very interesting one, and just another insight that we can glean from the output of our machine learning model around whether there are opportunities to acquire new customers. So, for example, if representatives or advisors or a branch or another physical location is located in a trade area where there is a significant opportunity to expand the customer base, their sales targets should be set higher than for people working in areas with more difficult to convert opportunities. So having the outputs of the machine learning model and insights around where the best areas of opportunities are allows us to set appropriate plans for our workforce as well. Next slide, please. This slide just summarizes the story up until now of how we leverage AI to drive effective customer acquisition campaigns. First of all, there is obviously a need to have a solid underlying data foundation in place to feed our machine learning model in order to maximize the predictive power and also produce explainable outputs. The proprietary data set has to be tuned for a given use case, be it a country, a industry, or a line of business. We need to leverage the data then to personalize the campaigns to increase the relevancy to the prospective customers. And of course, we need to execute the campaigns in an omni-channel way, digital and non-digital, to drive results. So our acquisition AI has this end-to-end capabilities. Next slide, please. So next, I wanted to share with you that we have just been talking about is not just the theoretical use case of data and AI in customer acquisition. We have leveraged this thinking in the work that we have completed with multiple clients in both Canada and Australia, and we have seen some very positive results. The nuances of the use cases we have dealt with include helping organizations expand their customer base for a given product or line of business, evolving the acquisition models towards an always-on and more personalized models, launching a new product, as well as expanding into a new geography. The result that we have achieved underscore the premise that of the presentation, using data and AI to narrow the marketing funnel to just focus on the best acquisition opportunities. Personalize the campaigns based on the nuanced knowledge and leverage advanced execution capabilities, drive business value through bringing in valuable customers in an appropriate amount in a cost-effective way. And you will see here on the slide some of the results that we have been able to achieve, both from the increase in the acquisition rate, sometimes up to 3 times, as well as in the value of the people that we are bringing into the financial institution or into our client. And again, making sure that the cost per acquisition is kept relatively low. This concludes my presentation. And now I will move on to a quick demo to help visualize the output of the acquisition AI model and profiling that is possible using the rich data that we have. Please give me 30 seconds to upload it and start sharing. So now we are focusing on this opportunity identification step that precedes the execution. And this step is broken down into precise targeting and personalization. What you see here on the screen is a sample output from our machine learning predictive model. Before getting to this stage, there has been work done to train our machine learning model based on the acquisition AI proprietary data set and the organization's first party non-PII data to make this prediction. So what you will see here are the different colored dots, which are the small geographical areas and the 6-digit postal codes where the machine learning model we call extractability predicts that there are best opportunities to acquire new customers to an organization. Again, keep in mind that these dots will be different for each organization or even for different products or line of business in the organization. So this is a color coding based on the opportunity that exists in those small geographical areas. Of course, we want to go after the most likely to convert opportunities. So we're going to filter for the very high extractability areas. And you will see that the display is going to refresh to just show the very high extractability areas. As we discussed, the acquisition models are evolving to focus not just on the number of customers, but also on their value. So when we work with our clients, one of the approaches that we actually take is identifying which geodemographic segments have yielded the most valuable customers for them in the past, and seeing if there are opportunity areas to acquire new similar valuable personas. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to click on any of those segments that we have. Right now, I chose nature and tradition lovers as a representative segment that presents high value customers in the past for those organizations. So when we filter for this persona, we only are left with the intersection of most likely to be acquired customers, which is the output of our machine learning model, and the high value potential customers based on the analysis of the value that we have done. And these are the small geographical areas that we want to target. So once we have actually identified where we want to precisely target, and this is in about just over 1,000 6-digit postal codes, we can apply additional prioritization and filtering criteria, of course, to narrow down the opportunity areas even more. But for the sake of this demo, we are just going to move into the personalization step. So what we want to target just those 1,000 plus 6-digit postal codes. In this demo instance, we have 11 dashboards geared towards financial services, because that's the demo that I've chosen to use today, that we can glean insights from. I'm not going to go in depth through each one of those 11 dashboards, but I will highlight just a few. This is a very basic population profile that talks about the geodemographic characteristics of the population and just the population we are going to go after. We can get a sense of age, family composition, education, and employment. The next tab is the cultural profile of our target area, from ethnic backgrounds and immigration point of view, as well as the languages spoken at home. This information can be very relevant to personalization, and as it will give us a sense of which additional languages to actually translate our materials to. This tab is actually something that is very favorite for a lot of the marketing organizations we work with. This is something we have spoken about before and around ethnographic segmentation. As you will see right now, the same geodemographic persona that we have chosen has actually two dominant ethnographic personas. Understanding the values and beliefs of those two different dominant personas would allow us to have additional degree of personalization. We will understand which emotions we need to trigger for each of those personas, something called positive decision triggers, in order to increase the chances of gaining these people as our customers. We want to appeal to those emotions that will make them make a positive decision. So that is 3 dashboards that we have around explaining and understanding the population from the demographic perspective. The next set of dashboards is actually a deep dive into the financial profile of the population and help us understand the banking wallet of the population, its income distribution and net wealth, as well as the type of primary and secondary financial relationship they have at a very detailed level. So we have product level information that allows us to deep dive into each component of the financial of the banking wallet. The last thing that I wanted to highlight is, as previously mentioned, in addition to just the dollars and cents type information about the population, we also consider some of the behavioral characteristics. We look at the likelihood or to use financial advice, paid and unpaid, the type of advice used, and the sources of information and influence that people in this particular area that we're going to target have. Also, very importantly, the degree of comfort and proficiency the population has with financial matters. This can also help us craft the appropriate messages for the marketing campaigns. Finally, some of the key insights around channel preferences provide us insights around what is the channel mix for the marketing campaign that we should take for if we are going to target a particular area. As well, we can get a sense of how savvy, digitally savvy the population is and how much they utilize the physical network. I hope that this quick demo brings to life what I have been presenting previously around how we use data to fuel our AI models and then use this data to personalize campaign to drive effective business results. And this concludes my demo.